Hi there! This video is on Game of Thrones cast members who appeared in every TV season. That over on the Game of Thrones wiki, where I'm an administrator, we keep track of such things of how many episode appearances by which actors. And just for fun, for trivia, for myself really, over on our forum, I started a list around Season 4 of actors who've recurred in the show since Seasons 1 and 2. Because they have a huge cast and people die pretty regularly. Now, this is more concerned with actors, not the fictional characters. Because I'm interested in, I conceive of it as people who could be sitting at a convention panel telling us about behind-the-scenes stuff, like what was the creative process on Season 1, production issues they had, that sort of thing. So it's who was with the show since then. As a result, this doesn't cover fictional creatures that aren't really played by a person, like the direwolves have animal actors, but they can't talk, or like the dragons are full CGI, so obviously like Ghost is in Season 1 and Season 8, Drogon was introduced at the end of Season 1, he'll be in Season 8, but I'm talking about people who could talk at a convention panel, that kind of thing. So here's the full cast, and just who managed to stick through it to the end. And it doesn't matter to me what fictional characters live or die. It's who was present in Season 8. And so often it turns into who lives or dies, and it seems like they couldn't bring themselves to kill off certain characters. You've seen other shows where the writers get attached to a character in, like, Heroes or something, and they just kind of hang around, drifting into the background because their storyline ended, but they couldn't bring themselves to kill them. So, like, Brienne, Podrick, or Dolorous Edd are technically still alive, but they didn't do much in Season 7. So, what good is that? I'd rather have someone have a meaty scene, like Renly was only in the first 2 seasons, but he did a lot. That was a meaty role. He would have things of substance to talk about, versus, well, Brienne has turned into I stare at a candle, or, well, I got into a big fight scene with Maisie Williams and it had no narrative impact. So, guys, limit the discussion. It doesn't matter who lives or dies. What I'm concerned about is these returning actors who can talk about their experiences on it. And I divided this into several subcategories. The first one is actors introduced in Season 1 who continuously appeared in every subsequent season through Season 8, that we know this from trailers. Well, this is all pretty logical. It's the Tier A cast members to begin with. In Season 5, they had some contract negotiations where they officially established a pay grade system, that they paid an exorbitant amount of money to the really core cast, these 5 people. It pretty much matches up with the books, that these are the characters who had the most POV chapters. People have counted that, well, obviously Jon Snow would be getting the most screen time, Tyrion and Daenerys. Another issue is, that they technically have 24 to 30 starring cast members, technically credited as starring, per season. It has to do with pay grade issues when you're starring versus a recurring guest. That's all technical legal stuff, but they had to have a way to define, okay, out of 28 people, who are the core 5 to 7? Tier A. So that's Emilia Clarke as Daenerys Targaryen, Kit Harington as Jon Snow, Lena Headey as Cersei Lannister, Nikolai Coster-Waldau as Jaime Lannister, and Peter Dinklage as Tyrion Lannister. That really, I'd say, the core characters in this saga are the Stark children, the Lannister children, and Daenerys. If books or TV series, well, when I say Lannister children, I mean Tywin's children and Ned's children in his household. And there's an age gap because, Tywin's older than him. Next, we have Sophie Turner as Sansa Stark and Maisie Williams as Arya Stark. I don't know why they're not technically considered part of Tier A, the core cast, because books and TV series, entire subplots focus on them. They're both major POV narrators in the first book onwards. I think it's because they were underaged at the time or something, because it's a pay grade thing, but I mentally usually just lump them in with the tier A's as the big seven is what I call them, the really core cast. That it's the Stark children, the Lannister children. Below that, of course, kind of Stark children, you have Alfie Allen as Theon Greyjoy, who is, sort of the adoptive seventh Stark child. He grew up in their household, and he starts getting POV chapters in Book 2. And then John Bradley as Samwell Tarly, Jerome Flynn as Bronn, which they cut out a lot of Bronn's storylines from the later books, which I wish they'd kept in. He rises to become the Lord of House Stokeworth, and they were starting to introduce that in Season 5, and then they just abandoned it to have him do buddy comedy stuff with Jaime. That was kind of a letdown. That it was the rise of Bronn. Watching it from season to season, book to book, was interesting, but he was in since Season 1 and in every season. Also, Conleth Hill as Varys, and a lot of Varys' storylines got changed because he has this whole storyline involving the Free Cities in Book 5 onwards, which is really shaking things up a lot, that they couldn't do that in the TV series once they cut that out, so we'll see where they go with him. And last of the ones that appeared in every season is Ian Glenn as Jorah Mormont. Yeah, I always forget this, that he has been in every season, because he's so much of a part of the setting of Daenerys' storyline. He's Mr. Exposition for the Daenerys storylines. And sometimes he's there just dumping information. Like, he had a lot to do in Season 5, moving the narrative along. Other times, not so much. But also with wiki tools, we can see article view counts. I kept wondering, why is he so high in this? And oh yeah, he's in a lot of episodes. He's in every season. They would link to him. And particularly because, depending on the day, the Daenerys article or the Jon Snow article is the top one on the wiki, and he links extensively off of the Daenerys one. Anyone reading the Daenerys page would end up clicking on a link to Jorah multiple times. Now, there are internal divisions within this, of course, I consider Sansa and Arya tier A, but technically they're not. And Theon, in a way, Alfie Allen has been with them longer than Emilia Clarke. Of the core 5, infamously, Daenerys Targaryen was recast from the unaired failed pilot, that a different actress, Tamsin Merchant, was playing the role. So Emilia came in later than Kit Harington, Peter Dinklage, and everyone else. And on top of that, they were there for the pilot. A lot of these actors who weren't in the first episode, like Samwell Tarly shows up in episode 3, so they haven't been there since 2008 filming the pilot. They came in after that. Not that that's wrong, it's just due to the pacing of, I wasn't in the first episode, Varys is introduced a little later, of who was there from the beginning filming the pilot that we never saw. So, Alfie Allen isn't considered tier A, but, Emilia came in as a replacement. Now, some people did skip seasons. So this other category I have here is actors introduced in Season 1. They have been there since the beginning, whose recurring characters are still alive by Season 8, but skipped some TV seasons. And this is for story reasons, really. Bran Stark, for example, they said we wanted to put his storyline on hold in Season 5, rather than invent a subplot for him the way they did for Sansa, so he just wasn't in it all that season. Gendry, all the still rowing jokes, actually they gave him more to do than in the books, where it's after you leave the Brotherhood without banners, you don't see him again for a long time, and then he pops up again in Brienne's storyline, which got cut, that she links up again with the Brotherhood without banners in the 4th novel, where it turns out he stayed with them and became this fighter with them. So, without that, they still wanted him to do stuff in seasons 3 and 4, so they merged him with another one of Robert's bastards, Edric Storm, to have him interact with Stannis, which is a good idea. That's what I would have done. But there was only so much you could pad out or have reasons for him to be in the story, so he wasn't in seasons 4, 5, and 6, and then showed up again in season 7. It was nice to see him. He's a good actor, and I want to see what happens to Gendry. I suspect he'll be like the Henry Tudor of this story, that Yorks and Lancasters, Starks and Lannisters, that the Lancaster bastard will survive to overthrow everyone. And, of course, Rory McGann as Sandor Clegane, a.k.a. the Hound, that we thought he was dead, so he disappeared throughout all of Season 5, only to then come back. In the books, he hasn't come back yet, but it's heavily implied that he wasn't really dead, so that wasn't really that much of a spoiler that, he'll come back eventually. And I don't think he's doing what he will be doing in the books. But so these are all people you kind of expect to go the distance, that they're major starring cast members. If they did die, it would be a major event, that they probably won't die randomly in a single episode like a guardsman would. But to me, it's more interesting of watching in any TV show like Star Trek or something, minor recurring characters who manage to stay alive, particularly in a show like this with a high turnover rate. There's 3 of these, and the first one is actually a special case. Sir Ilan Payne, the royal executioner who personally swung the sword that decapitated Ned Stark in Season 1. Well, the actor Wilko Johnson, who's actually a famous musician, he got terminal pancreatic cancer after Season 2, so he was in Season 1 and a bit of Season 2, and he stopped showing up, and they said, you have months to live. And this is nothing short of a medical miracle, that they found out that, you don't have type A pancreatic cancer, you have this rarer type that we don't really have a name for, that we could plausibly operate on at high risk. The operation we're going to give you doesn't even have a name, it's so rare, and it could kill you, but you'd be assuredly dead in 6 months if we don't do it anyway. So he said, I'll roll the dice. And they had to remove his pancreas, parts of his liver and stomach. He's on insulin now, but it was drastic surgery. But he's up and about now, and he's really doing well, and he was staring death in the face. So I'm surprised that, wouldn't he have a cameo by Season 8? I don't know if he's healthy enough, or they could think of a story reason of he hasn't been on the show in 6 years. Maybe we should just let it drop. I don't blame them for that. That's a medical issue that came up. They have mentioned Ilan Payne being off-screen. Like in Season 4, they mention Ilan Payne in dialogue. He didn't just die off-screen or something. So we'll see, but that's a special case due to real life getting in the way. The interesting ones are the next 2, that Lino Faccioli as Sweet Robin Arryn. The creepy, he is technically their maternal cousin of the Starks. And Sweet Robin is Lord of the Vale, underage. That out of all of the lords of great houses, like Tywin dies, Robert dies, even Hoster Tully, was bedridden, and he was on his deathbed at the beginning of the series. Even in the books, Sweet Robin is one of the few heads of great houses who is still around. But he wasn't really the head, someone else was regent for him, but I keep wondering what's going to happen with him, books or TV series, because he's so pathetic, you almost feel sorry for him. He's never actually tried to hurt anyone. He's creepy because his mother developmentally stunted him and he was sickly to begin with, but he isn't like Joffrey. He's not a murderous person, and he's so utterly pathetic. They imply that Littlefinger is going to poison him, and you feel annoyed that you were born sickly, and if you had been a man like Robb Stark, you could have affected this war so much. But, can you blame a kid for being sick? He has epilepsy and all these other health problems. And I keep wondering, will there be this surprising turnaround where he turns into, a reasonably functional adult, or just luck of the draw that he's an idiot, but he ended up surviving because he wasn't particularly good or bad. I don't know what direction the books are going in with Sweet Robin. I have no idea what the TV show should or could do either. It's just interesting that he's still been alive. Now, he was mostly in Season 1, and then, of course, left because his storyline wasn't in it, until the Vale storyline returned in Season 4, where we saw him again with Sansa and her making a snow castle. He would have been in it more if they kept in her Vale storyline with Harold Harding the Heir and everything, but he makes one-shot appearances once in Season 5, once in Season 6, just to remind you he exists. And it has been confirmed he will be coming back for Season 8, so he's been around, and it's just, he was a really small child when this started, so we'll see what happens with Sweet Robin. And the one that I smile at so much, Ben Hawkey as Hot Pie. That Hot Pie was introduced at the very end of Season 1, because his storyline is really when they're going to Harrenhal in Season 2, but him and Gendry and everyone else, they show right in the Season 1 finale if we're heading to Harrenhal with Arya. And in the books, that's what his storyline does, and they get involved with the Brotherhood Without Banners in Season 3. Problem was, after Season 3, they didn't really have a reason to keep him in the show. He doesn't pop up again in the books. And he does have a happy ending that they left him at an inn to become a baker. That he said, I am not a fighter. I'll be killed if I stay on the road with you guys. Good luck. I'm stopping here, which is pretty much what the show did. But then they keep thinking of reasons for people to visit his inn. In the books, he didn't go to the Crossroads Inn. He went to a different inn, but fine, condense those two. We're at the Crossroads Inn. Brienne and Podrick meet him. And that was so great that they thought of a reason to put him in Season 4, but he wasn't in Seasons 5 and 6 and all. And then just Arya meeting Hot Pie again. It felt story-relevant, character-driven. That was a good scene. And it was nice to see him there. And Ben Hawkey's a nice guy. He's been doing this little mail order thing he bakes dire wolf bread as a specialty thing and sends them out. It's hilarious that he's involved in the show. That he has been a cast member on this major TV show since Season 1, recurring, times he took a season off. And he's done all this stuff in the Arya storyline. He hasn't been in, battle scenes. And he's still alive, and his character could die at any moment. Even Sweet Robin, you can say, well, he's a great lord, that if Littlefinger, poisons him, it'll be this big moment. At any time, Gregor Clegane could have cut him in half on a whim, and it wouldn't have really affected the storyline that much of, we can't kill that character, it'll do that other thing. But he's the man they couldn't kill. I'm worried that they're going to kill him in Season 8. Not that it really matters, just because they were hyping up him going... When Arya says goodbye to him in Season 7, she goes, "Take care, Hot Pie, try not to get killed." And he goes, "I'm a survivor." And I can't tell if that's them setting us up for, we're going to kill off this character. He's not going to die in the books anyway, or maybe he won't, I don't know. Or that could have been joking that, look, the guy with no fighting skills is indeed the one who will randomly live, just to show the chance of battle. I'm not sure, but either way, I haven't heard if he's in Season 8. I really hope he is, and the way they talked about him in Season 7, I think he will. But either way, even if a character dies, I'm happy for the actor being in it, that he managed to be a recurring role in this. He's just this ordinary guy character. Bringing up Gregor Clegane, like I said, this is focused on actors who are recurring, not characters, not direwolves, not dragons, people who could talk at a convention. So I'm not including recast roles, which anyone introduced in Season 1, like Cersei's other children, died anyway, well before Season 8. That Gregor Clegane was introduced in Season 1, but he's actually been recast twice. So this isn't an official part of the list, but I bring it up here, just for fun. That Season 1, the actor who played him went on to play Azog, or was it Bolg, in the Hobbit movies, and he only had one line, he just shouts for his sword. And then in Season 2, he was played by one of their stuntmen, Ian White, and he did have dialogue with Tywin. And then Hathor came in to take over the role for fighting Oberyn, and then being Ungregor for the rest of that. So I don't include that in the list, because it was recast. But while I'm at it, I will make special mention here for Ian White, because as an actor, while a role he originated hasn't been going on since Season 1, he has been playing roles in the show since the beginning. He played the White Walker in the prologue sequence who kills the Night's Watch Rangers. Now, he's a stuntman on the show who at times gets roles that have speaking lines. There are, obviously all the directors and the production team and the costumers, and particularly the stuntmen. There is an army of stuntmen who have been on this show since the beginning, and they will have interesting things to say at conventions. I'm not trying to short that. It's just what we can keep track of very visibly with sometimes, for these physical roles like Gregor or something, you cast a stuntman as the role. And Ian White, he's died multiple times on the show. That he's been a White Walker, and then he played the giant Dongo, who was introduced in Season 2, but got killed at the Battle of Castle Black in Season 4. And then he was One the Giant after that. So he's died 2 times already on the show, and he took a brief turn playing Gregor, and he put a lot of thought into that. He went instead of shouting, he has him talk in this really creepy, even voice, because he went, this is a man who kills children by cutting them in half and roasting them and raping women, that he wouldn't have anything approaching a human emotion. He's a monster. There's a lot of good interviews with Ian White online right now. Check him out. And he puts a lot of thought into these physical roles, like I'm playing a giant in this suit, but what are his motivations? How do I play how he does things? So he's got a lot of good info on that. So I give special mention to Ian White as cast member who has been with the show since season 1 in a stunt capacity, and it's cool. He's died a couple of times. He plays different roles. He will be in season 8 playing, zombie giants, so that's fun. Then, just because the way the story is structured, that it's a big ensemble cast, well, a lot of characters of substance who impacted a lot are only introduced by season 2, or book 2, same thing. So while I'm at it, here's, people who were with the show since season 2, and really, they achieved mega stardom of international fandom after season 3, after the Red Wedding. So I think I can lump this in of people who have been in it since early. I do put a cutoff on season 3, though, because, I really like their Missandei and Grey Worm, but, that's three seasons into it. So, actors who were first introduced in season 2 and continuously appeared in every subsequent season through season 8. Well, because they're not Tier A cast members, unfortunately, a lot of them got sidelined over time, and what I was saying before about your character arc didn't go anywhere, that Gwendolyn Christie as Brienne of Tarth and Daniel Portman as Podrick Payne, that I like them, but it's just they don't do anything anymore. And I talked about Brienne before. For Podrick, if the only thing people can think to ask you at convention panels is, remember that brothel scene you had 5 years ago? What did you do? You probably haven't done anything of substance in the intervening 5 years. That in the books, Podrick's part of Brienne's storyline, that he does things in the books, and their sideline, their storyline really didn't go anywhere, and that's upsetting. To a similar extent, Liam Cunningham as Davos Seaworth and Charisse Van Houten as Melisandre, that they've been in every season since season 2, but due to what happened to the Stannis storyline, they're not doing anything anymore. I mean, they've become sidekicks for Jon Snow, and it's just Liam Cunningham being himself. Of, look, I'm the friendly, curmudgeon-y, older smuggler guy being a sidekick to Jon, and it's just, why is this storyline happening? That there's no logic to this. Events just fall into place of, I think I'll go for a walk and find Shireen's burned remains. It's events falling into place, and there's so much Davos did with his friend Stannis. The loyalty I feel to Stannis that we've lost. The people who are technically hanging around for seasons on end, this is kind of full of that. Similarly, Ben Crompton as Dolorous Ed Tullett, who is acting head of the Night's Watch now in the TV show. I don't know what they're going to do in the books with that, but he has been in every season since season 2, and I don't know what they're going to do with that. Whether he lives or dies, I don't think they're going to give the character much to do, but I'm more focused on the actor, asking about all this filming on location they did in Iceland, on glaciers and stuff. It's interesting. And the last of the continuous ones since season 2, this is one who actually got stuff to do, Hannah Murray as Gilly. That it's been nice watching her increase in the role and get more to do with Sam. Well, obviously she does stuff with Sam in the books. She has a lot more with Sam in the books, of course, but, she's been around, seeing Old Town, seeing the Citadel. I felt, having the Tarly dinner scene, that she's been having reasonably big scenes to do, and I'm happy for the actress. And also and I talk about this in the costumes thing I did, that she's officially the actor who went the most seasons without a costume change. Not including people who have uniforms, like the Night's Watch or the Maesters or something. Not a uniform, but she was wearing that burlap sack thing from the wildlings living north of the wall, this homespun, from the beginning of season 2 through the middle of season 6. Like, other people would at least, we're going north of the wall, I'll get a cape or something. That she went the longest without a costume change. Even Arya was in her in her disguise clothes from the end of season 1 through season 5. I think it's 4 versus 4.5 seasons, but it was really long, and now she's getting, like, nobleman's furs that, Sam gave her to lend to her. So she's getting nice scenes, she's been filming a lot of stuff and seeing a lot of locations, and I'm happy for her work on this. And this is near the end here, just actors introduced in season 2 who recurred in multiple seasons, whose characters are still alive technically in season 8, but at times skipped seasons. Top of the list is Gemma Wellen as Yara Greyjoy. That she does more in the books, and it's the later books, that I don't entirely blame them for this. Look, either put her in or not, that after season 2, they thought, we'll give her cameos in seasons 3 and 4, setting up she's going to save Theon, and that was just written at the last minute and filled with plot holes of we're going to circumnavigate Westeros. It was anticlimactic. Brian Cogman kept trying to hype up, no, it's great, it's about disappointment. Just, you couldn't think of what to do with the character, and they do this all the time. Either we can't bring ourselves to get rid of the character or put them on pause the way we did with Bran, and don't have the courage to admit we can't make up another storyline for them. That they just kind of hover in the background. That whole thing with her in seasons 3 and 4. Thankfully, I love her as an actress. She does great work. This all turned around in season 6, when they actually put in the book Kingsmoot storyline, which is really, chronologically, they should have done in season 5. All the complaints about season 5 and the Dorne stuff, imagine if they had done the relatively well-received Iron Island storyline instead, with the whole Kingsmoot election and Euron, not as this swaggering rock star, but as Book Euron. But still, that was in there in season 6. It really got kind of low-key by season 7. But season 6, with her dealing with the Kingsmoot, she did a lot then, so that I was really happy to see her back. Season 7, not as much. She injured herself pretty bad in one of the fight scenes and had to take a couple of months off before she could come back. But she's okay now. So she'll be in season 8, and she has been a major recurring figure since season 2. And there was a long gap there, but hey, Gendry was gone and came back. She was gone and came back. Happy to see her there. Beyond that, you have Tom Vlachia as Jaqen H'ghar. And that's kind of a special case, with shapeshifters of, the character can die, but the actor will always be, I'm another shapeshifter that looks like him. That's fine. I don't know if he'd be in season 8 or not. He was heavily in season 2, and then in seasons 5 and 6. The Jaqen face doesn't show up again in Braavos in the books, but that's what I would have done. I would have reused the actor, because it's fun that way. He's another shapeshifter. We don't know if he's the same one or not. Does it matter to them in their cult? But it was nice to see him again, and I don't know if he'll be in next season. And just at the end of the list here, people who were introduced in season 2 and technically appeared in more than one season, Lucian Samadi as Salador San, which I really liked him. He brought a quirky, fun pirate tone to all of this. He's a privateer, he's a sell sail. And again, tying into when they cut out the Stannis storyline, if that would have been fun, seeing him do stuff with Stannis in the north and everything that's going on with that plot line, that he's technically alive, he recurred from seasons 2 to 4, and then he just fell out of the story, and I don't think we'll see him again or find out what happened to him. So, is season 8 even going to resolve what happens to the Iron Bank, like Tycho, or just, they presumably go on living? They're not going to wrap up each of the hundreds of characters they've introduced, but I kind of hope they would give a nod to some of the recurring ones. So, that's where that stands. But these were all major guest roles. Again, what gets really interesting for me are the minor recurring day players who they turn into a recurring multi-season role with some speaking lines, because they could die at any minute, but they somehow manage to keep going. So I talked about those for season 1 with Sweet Robin and Hot Pie. For people introduced since season 2, there's 2 more characters. We have Cersei's handmaiden, who in the credits they eventually started calling her Bernadette, and she's played by actress Sarah Dillon. Now, they call her Bernadette in the credits. That's a modern name that you wouldn't hear someone say out loud in Westeros. They don't say it out loud. She's clearly named after Bernadette Caulfield, is one of the major producers on the show, so they went, oh, let's call her Bernadette. But as long as they don't say it out loud, I don't really have a problem. Like Marcia or something doesn't really sound like a medieval name, Bernadette, but whatever. So she has been around since season 2. And a lot of people were weirded out when she reappeared again in season 7 that, wait, who's this new character with drastically different hair? That made sense to me. It's this principle they have in the show that servants try to dress like the rich head of the house. This is a real-life principle, that Cersei would be the trendsetter for the Lannister faction. Catelyn is sort of all of the Stark handmaids kind of dress like Catelyn does. So in the earlier seasons, the handmaids dressed in simplified forms of what Cersei wears. You can see on the left there that she's wearing that lateral fan braid that Cersei used a lot in earlier seasons on formal occasions. Then when, she popped up again in season 7, well, Cersei had her hair cropped and is trying to pass it off as a style now. I've been shorn, but okay, this is a new look I'm going with, run with it. So as not to shame her, all of her handmaids have cut their hair. 7 seasons deep into the show, we knew of this in season 1, that servants try to dress like the person who's leading their faction. It was a little jarring even for me, but I understood why they were doing it. And she's been around a lot with speaking lines, just sporadically once every season since season 2 or so. That she was first pretty prominent, that it was the season 2 episode where Sansa starts flowering, so her and Shae try to hide the mattress, because if they find out she can have children, Joffrey will try to rape her. But a handmaid comes bursting into the room and then stops dead in her tracks when she sees what they're doing, and then Shae holds a knife to her throat and threatens her. That was her, Sarah Dillon, playing that role. And then every season or so that she'd be spying on Sansa as the handmaiden picked by Cersei for her, that like when she's helping her get in her wedding dress to Tyrion, and then right before the purple wedding, she was spying on, and she has dialogue. She comes in and says, "I've seen Tyrion with Shae," to her. Then she missed out on one season, though. She missed out on season 5, but then she came back. So Sarah Dillon has been with the show for a while, with some speaking lines, and I just kind of wonder what will happen to her character. And this character isn't in the books, of course, there's no one named that. It is a condensation of Cersei's handmaidens that she picks for Sansa are said to be spying on her, that there's like half a dozen other handmaid characters they just have one actress standing in for. Tyrion complains the handmaidens are all spying on Sansa for Cersei, who are in turn spying on them for Marjorie, back and forth. Last one in the list here is introduced in season 2, Josephine Gillen as Marais the prostitute. She actually first showed up at the beginning of season 2 as she was unnamed prostitute. She didn't have a name yet. As she was a new prostitute at the brothel, and Ross was complaining that, you're faking it too hard. You sound really fake. And she tells her, imitating Littlefinger, no, this is how you fake it well. And then the Goldcloaks come in and kill the baby bastard or something. But that was her in the beginning of season 2, and it wasn't very prominent, but she was there. And then in season 3, very prominently, where they introduced her with her name, Tyrion bought a couple of prostitutes to reward Podrick with, that she was one of the 3 that was there, and he goes, oh, this is Marais, and she actually has a speaking line of, oh, he's so handsome. You didn't say he was handsome. So the problem you may have noticed from my screenshots here is that this is a bigger problem with Game of Thrones Wiki, with this character, that she has been recurring since season 2, though she missed season 7, but she's been in 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and she never wears clothes, at all. And the Wikia, organization that I work for, they have rules against posting full frontal nudity or behindle nudity into our wiki articles. So I have to artfully crop these things, and it's just, it's in every shot. It's all a bunch of headshots or her shoulders from behind. That if you go to her article and wonder, why aren't there enough pictures of this character? It's not like, Ross would put clothes on and have a dialogue scene outside the castle. She hasn't. But she has had speaking lines since season 2, particularly season 3. There was this whole sequence where the Faith militants storm the brothel and they drag her off by her hair. Well, she said that was supposed to be a more involved scene where, like, someone was going to punch her in the mouth and she'd have fake blood, but they cut it out because they said it was too over the top, which is good. That would have been really gratuitous. So, and she's been in scenes with a lot of the major actors. That she's been in the Tyrion scenes. She was in scenes with Oberyn at the beginning of season 4 when he goes to the brothel, and then Tywin comes in. So they're all people they would encounter on the set. So it's, obviously I contrast this with Ross, since Ross died, that Marais is now officially the longest recurring of the prostitute characters. We keep track, we have a list of prostitute characters, soldier characters, and then we go down a list on the wiki and cross off a list. One is dead, which we indicate in brackets. Like the way the books at the end go, here's a list of all the servants in the Lannister household, and here's prostitutes working at Littlefinger's brothel. It's like that. And we make a list, and it's just, wow, this character is still alive? So she's the longest recurring of the prostitute characters, and I say longest recurring, not most episodes. Ross was in more episodes overall, and she had more significant speaking lines. She was in 14 episodes with a lot of the major characters, but only in seasons 1 to 3 before they kind of anticlimactically killed her off. In contrast to, 3 seasons, Gillen has been Marais in 7 episodes spanning seasons 2 to 6. So she's been the longest recurring. Again, like, you think she does local conventions in Ireland and stuff, just talking about the experience of what it's like to go out to location, be on the sets, be filming, and it's nice to get more fan interaction with that. Like, Kit Harington will be off filming some new hotshot movie or something, A-list movie, versus people like Ben Hawkey or as Hot Pie or Josephine Gillen. They interact with the fans a lot, and it's fun that we get to learn about you just being on camera and what it's like working with everything. She said she would be in season 7, then wasn't. I guess her scene must have been cut for time, but she has said through social media, I am in season 8, so we'll see what goes with that. Oh, unlike how Bernadette is technically, just a condensation of other handmade characters, Marais is technically a book character, in that there is a prostitute in the brothel named Marais, so they reused the name. It's not like she has a storyline compared to Shay or something, but there is a prostitute named Marais in the books, so she's technically an adaptation character. So she's managed to stay alive all this time, without poisonings or murders and stuff. So just wrapping it up here, just focusing on these 4 recurring characters who aren't part of Tier A. That's interesting to me, just the trivia of, looking over the wiki records of who appears when, that, if Arya Stark dies, it would be a major season finale event. And, you would have set up to it, or Cersei's death, or Tywin's death, versus these are characters who could have died at any moment. It's interesting, for the sake of these actors, that, no, I managed to be this recurring person in the background of such a major show, and little things I did with my character, and it'll be interesting, seeing them talk about this in conventions and stuff. Like, going into season 8, Sweet Robin, Hot Pie, Sarah Dillon as Bernadette, and Josephine Gillen as Marais, I actually hope that it's preferable to have a substantial, meaningful death scene than, oh yeah, I'm Dolorous Ed in the background and I live to the end as part of the background furniture. Like, I want them to have things to do in season 8 that are worth it. Even if it's just, oh, here's a scene of Hot Pie saying, hooray, I went back to being a baker and I lived happily ever after, or something. That, don't forget about them. So, I'm upset about other things the show has done. I never got upset at the actors. That they really put their heart into this, and I'm happy for them. And in years ahead, the point of this isn't what characters lived or died, what dragons or stuff, just what actors went on this long journey with us together. And yeah, I kind of hope that a lot of, the secondary people pick up roles in whatever prequel projects they're working on. It's going to be filmed in Northern Ireland, whatever it is. If they do Targaryen Conquest or something, I'd like to see, Hot Pie as some inn owner, as his distant ancestor, or Josephine Gillen playing some brothel madam who owns the brothel. It's just a nod to the fans of, oh yeah, we're reusing some of the cast members. I'd like to see Natalie Dormer playing some older person from The Reach 10 years from now as one of her ancestors. That in the prequel, I'd like to see them reuse the same stable of actors because, they're nice and we like them.